Afternoon, everyone. It's Sharon here from Climate Action North, and I am thrilled today to welcome our guest, Anj Handa, who is the lady responsible for inspiring women changemakers. And Anj and I have been friends on LinkedIn for a while now because we share a mutual interest in rewilding. And I know that Anj has been busy rewilding her former bridleway near her house, but I'm going to let Anj tell you a little bit about that. So good afternoon, Anj. How are you?
Great, thank you, Sharon. Thanks so much for inviting me on. I'm always very excited to talk about nature. I'm usually talking about quite tough women's rights subjects on behalf of inspiring women change makers. So it's nice to have a bit of fun and talk about some of the conservation work that I love to do.
Yeah, I know I've been reading quite a lot because obviously I follow you on social media as well. So we follow each other on Instagram, and I like to see the pictures that you're putting up as well. It's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? I think it is a good solace, I think, for people like us who work in quite tough sectors with constantly bad news. It's not really good. Sometimes it's good news, but a lot of it is really tough times for us. So I think there's something to be said about having that solace in nature, isn't there?
Very much so. Through inspiring women change makers, the whole ethos, even though it's not just about women, the community is mostly female led, and we focus on fairness and safety for women, and that includes some really tough subjects. It's not just about workplace equality, but gender-based violence, female genital mutilation, all these subjects that can really wear you down energetically. And so for me, the ability to go in my garden and get my hands in the mud is necessary to be able to support not just myself, but all of the people in my community as well, which is not just around the UK. We've got a few members from abroad too. And the bigger we grow, the more tough stuff comes up. So yeah, 100% need my garden space to feel good.
Absolutely. So you said that you're working on some tough projects as well at the moment. I mean, is it quite it's obviously a varied role that you do, Anj. Yeah, varied role indeed.
Absolutely. So there are three elements, if you like, to the work that I do personally. Inspiring Women Change Makers, as I said, is a community. So it's a membership organisation of change makers who are passionate about women's rights in some shape or form. So projects that we have at the moment is a group of members are working on it's very technical, the pre-trial guidelines produced by the Crown Prosecution Service relating to survivors of domestic abuse. So they've been working with that, and I've been helping to coordinate it and open doors, getting some of the right influencers involved for us to be able to communicate with policymakers and others. And then with regard to my own passions, all of this started with a change.org petition that I led based on an asylum seeker and female genital mutilation, and I mentor people that have experienced domestic abuse. So it's all too common that I might get calls out of hours from people wanting some help or some signposting, and that can be quite tough. Then there are two other parts to my own work, if you like, that tie in nicely with Inspiring Women Change Makers. I do a lot of consultancy with charities and organisations on their social impact and the way they measure and communicate that and develop the strategies. And then I'm a speaker. I have a speaker agent, and I speak on change making and using social media for social good. So it's quite wide ranging, but they all fit together. It's like nice little pieces of a puzzle.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it's really interesting as well that diversity of subjects that you're working on, because it is quite a challenging area, isn't it?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your rewilding project then, Anj. What you're going to tell us about that?
Yes, definitely. And we can get I sent you some pictures, so we can get those up while I'm just starting to tell people. So at the back I've owned my house for 13 years, and at the back, so part of it belongs to me on my deeds, is what was the former bridle way. It's a long stretch that runs between all the residents' houses on my road. So you can see this long stretch on this first slide, and you can see that at the start of lockdown, which is when this was taken, there were brambles, there were overgrown blackcurrant bushes, nobody had pruned the apple or pear trees, and it was generally a huge mess. The second picture to the right of my screen, the close-up, was kind of after I'd done it, and this picture of the bench is something that I installed fairly recently. We're further along in summer, but you can see that I've cleared it, the bushes have been tamed, and then in another section I've grown lots of wildflowers. So I scattered poppy seeds in autumn. I've got red valerian, I've got all sorts of toadflax, all sorts of things that pollinators like. That's that bit. We can move on. And as a result of this rewilding in such a short space of time, and I would say I had started a few years ago and then I broke my ankle. So I'd started and it was such a big project. There was no way, I wasn't physically fit enough. My ankle wasn't strong enough to dig, full stop. So it was only really at the start of March that I started to feel well again, that I could do this. And it's attracted so many diverse species of wildlife, and these are just a few. So we've got long-tailed tits, about 20 come to my feeders. I've seen ladybird larvae for the first time. We have 45 of those. Goldfinches, greenfinches, bullfinches. We even had a wryneck woodpecker, which are very uncommon, and there's a little wood a house away from mine at the end of the bridleway, and it was living there, but then it was coming and landing on the fence by mine, so that I didn't advertise that too much because I thought a bunch of twitchers would turn up. And then recently this gorgeous little female hedgehog, she was clearly nesting because it was late afternoon, and I spoke to the local wildlife rescue centre just to check nothing was wrong with her, and they agreed with me. They thought she was nesting, and I'm really sad to tell you that I live on an A road and I saw a squished hedgehog, and I think it might have been this one. So there's a couple of petitions out there right now which you've shared and I've shared. The one by Hugh Warwick, which has got 955,000 signatures already to lobby for hedgehog highways. And this so inexpensive. These you can buy gravel boards for part of your fence with the hole pre-drilled in. It's not an expensive thing to do. And I know that there's a group in Dorset, the Dorset Mammal Group, have actually developed these little wooden ghost hedgehogs to try and encourage people to slow down. And they're also crowdfunding now for the gravel boards and for the modified fences for the villages around Dorset. So that's so lovely. I personally, I'm not sure how that would work on my road, given that it's an A road. It's 40 miles an hour. Some people are even faster than that, and even at 40 miles an hour, if it's dangerous to swerve. So it's quite a tricky one. But the bridleway feels so far removed. The ring road's at the front of my house. The bridleway is like another world altogether. So what I am pleased to tell you is, despite Henrietta, as I called her, probably being killed, we have neighbours just up the bridleway that have rescued 2 blind hedgehogs, a Mr. and a Mrs. And if they mate, then we'll have lots of little hoglets. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. They've secured the garden. I went in and was talking to them about ground cover plants the other day. So yeah, let's see what happens with that. Because I read a stat actually when I was thinking about today's chat. I learned, and this is horrifying really, that hedgehog populations have fallen by 30% this century, but more than 90% since World War II. How can that be? So I'm not dwelling on the hedgehogs, but I think we've got a real call to action here. So, you know, the diversity of what you plant, I've seen some other insects as well that aren't pictured here. If we move on, I'll show you my container pond. So before we go on to that, we've got some things that I've upcycled and repurposed. So the bottom circle is at the end of my neighbour's garden on the bridleway were some very old bricks just dumped. So I made a strawberry bed, and that's now lush and full of strawberries, but the birds have eaten them all, unfortunately. The thing with ivy was a chimenea that my friend was going to put in the skip, and so I took the rust off, got stove paint, made it look posh, and then decided not to use it as a chimenea because it was far too much hassle. So it's an ivy planter now, and it looks lovely. And then the third thing is a dolly tub, I believe they're called. So it's a iron, kind of galvanized iron tub on legs. And it was in my neighbour's garden that lived further up the bridleway, full of stagnant water. And I looked at it and, is that going spare? And they said, yeah, of course, we don't want it. So at first I was going to do that up as a planter, but we've decided collectively it's going to be a fire pit so that we continue to socialise outdoors in winter, you know, because we don't want to go into each other's homes. So that's my latest project. I haven't started on that yet, so it obviously has a lot of rust that needs taking off. So if we move on, this is my container pond that I made just over a year ago, and it is plastic. I really toyed with this, a wooden barrel, and I thought if I buy a wooden barrel, I'm still going to have to get plastic liner. And this was lightweight and easy to move, which was another consideration for me, because like you, I have a garden, so it goes on my patio area, and it's robust enough for a patio pond. And within a year, you can see the smaller picture. This is a damsel fly nymph with a fly balanced on its head quite cheekily. I'm really proud of this macro shot, which I took with my mobile phone. But we've had all sorts. My neighbours have a pond as well. We've had dragonflies buzzing around, lots of different types of butterflies. I've seen some emerald green ones that I haven't seen. We've got more speckled wood butterflies, and I even had a plume moth, which I'd never seen before. So it just goes to show that when you plant diverse plants and bring diverse insects and birds and other things into the garden, you create this lovely virtuous circle of things really quickly. And in the pond, I've also got ram's horn snails. I didn't put them in; they migrated the way in.
Fantastic. I'm amazed actually at the you know, the amount of wildlife that you've already attracted just by doing what are really, really easy things to do, Anj, aren't they?
All the really easy things, and I've shared a lot of this on my Pinterest page. So my Pinterest is, I think it's just Anj Handa. It might be Anj Handa Associates, but even you'll see in a pot by the fountain, there's a lime green plant. That's creeping jenny, which you use in borders, but it also is a pond marginal plant. So I just divided that up. It's so cheap to do, and some of the other pond plants, a couple were gifted, a couple have just found their way in. And that's the thing I always tell people, don't think you've got to spend a fortune on plants, and especially when you've got a huge area like the Bridleway. I've divided other friends' plants up, I've waited for things to get blown in, you know, I've chucked some seeds down, and it's been amazing what's come up.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So do you get any birds visiting the pond as well, like a bird bath, or is it more a pond?
Sometimes, less so. I think maybe because the neighbours have such a huge pond, and I have put another container with fresh water in that they do visit. But the pigeon likes to plonk itself in, and the blackbird from time to time, not so much the smaller ones for whatever reason, but they're always at the feeders. And I think by the feeders I've got a smaller container, so maybe that's where it's hidden beyond sight behind the brick wall, so they're probably bathing and I just don't know it.
Brilliant, really, really fascinating. Lovely. Is that one of those sauna fountains as well that you've got in?
Yeah, the £9 off eBay. I had one that was wired. It gave up the ghost. They last about a year or so. So this is just a floating one now, but they do the trick, and they're enough to agitate the water so that you don't get blanket algae and things. And the cover of the creeping jenny has helped with that as well. It helps keep the water clear.
Yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I'll be using that idea. I think I'll have to get myself another little pond.
Yeah, well, it's just great fun, isn't it? Because you just don't know. And I think I mean, my neighbour's little boy can peer over the fence, and he's absolutely obsessed with the pond. And when we're fishing out the ivy, it's so sweet to watch.
It's wonderful. Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. So what else have you got in your yard and then on your Bridleway?
I have plenty, so I don't think I've shared any more pictures here, but lots and lots really, again, as I say, by dividing. So just really thinking about what might attract wildlife. So nothing that's too sterile. I've got lots of pollinator attracting plants really. So Astrantia, had agapanthus, I've just had to chop that back. Loads of verbena, and that's self-seeding. Geum, muskmallow, so all these perennials, so that I'm not spending a fortune every time. But I also, because it's mostly courtyard and then some low flower beds, I've put some more alpines down, which is slow growing ground cover, and again the pollinators just seem to love them. But also in the awkward cracks, I've got some old stone steps up to the bridleway. I've shoved in alpines and thyme, and they're loving that. And it's just that blend of fragrance. There's so much going on because I've got chives, and all the senses really are covered in that garden. But mostly I planted for the birds and the pollinators. I think the next thing for me will be teasels for the goldfinches, and it might halve my sunflower seed bill.
Yeah, exactly. I love the teasel. I mean, we did when we did the pollinator parks garden at the Business Innovation Centre in Sunderland. We actually did plant teasel. We were, you know, we kind of people were saying, oh, you know, why are you planting things like that? And we even planted dandelions because obviously they're a really good source for pollinators to sort of land on as well when they come out of that hibernation sort of thing. So it's a first food source, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But the teasel is fantastic. I mean, I really love teasel as a plant. I think it is a fantastic resource for goldfinches, isn't it? So it'd be nice.
It's so architectural as well. I like the look of it, and I've planted thistles as well. The joy for me really is I can be a little more pretty and managed within the courtyard, and you know, in the containers, that I can be as crazy as I like on the bridleway, and that experimentation and mix of colours, because we have lots of moss and field speedwell and dandelions, and even behind my tall plants I've left patches of nettles and things, again for the butterflies and the moths. So just being mindful of how you can mix up all of your plants to benefit wildlife. And there's so much information on the internet. I don't think you have to study. And you know, even I read Monty Don's book The Jewel Garden recently, and he used to be a jewelry designer. He's not a formally trained person, and you know, look at what he's created and what he continues to do. And people like him, to me, take the snobbery out of horticulture. They just show you, and that's really what I'm trying to do with people that follow me on Facebook or Instagram, is just try. It's not that easy to kill plants really. Even if you chop them back, they tend to spring back up again. They're amazing. So and you don't have to invest a lot of money either.
Yeah, I like the idea that nature's so resilient, isn't it, really? I think that's the nice thing about it. I mean, I'm not a gardener. I never was really a gardener. I was always an environmentalist, really. So I'm learning as well. You know, I'm learning quite a lot when we plant with our horticulturalist, you know, when he's planting the gardens up at the pollinator parks. But really enjoyed those photographs as well. They've been fascinating to see, you know, what you've done in that bridleway. So, you know, your neighbours as well, I think you might have mentioned this already. Are the neighbours just, you know, of the same mindset as you anyway? Are they just letting you get on with it, or are you just...
Yeah, oh, they're loving it. It's inspired a couple to do that as well. So next door to me dug it out. They'd never touched theirs before. They've got all rhubarb and some other things in there. Others, one likes his brambles, you know, he lets his kids play, but that's okay as well because they're needed. They provide cover. It keeps the birds safe from the two neighbourhood cats that are a bit pesky. They ran off with a wren the other day, and that was a bit upsetting. But you know, and we've got some new neighbours that have just built out of pallets a really huge wood composter, and they've got a chipper. So that what I started has encouraged others to even think about a bit. So that I'm quite lucky because my next door neighbour is a really good friend, and particularly since lockdown, the fence between us came down. It fell down in the wind about 2 weeks before lockdown, and it was we only got a new one about a month and a half ago. And so that was great solace for her because she's a single mum with a toddler. but she has no time. She runs a business, she's got children. So her stretch of the bridle way is the length of a very long detached house. So I've got all of that to play with. I've got all of my bit and all of hers. And she doesn't come back there anyway, or when she does, she comes through my garden. So yeah, you know, she's absolutely content. And then I've put the bench down, as you could see, and the neighbours like that. You know, they said, "Oh, we might sit out there." So it's created a more communal space and a form of socialising that has been a godsend during lockdown, because a couple of them have become really good friends now, and we hardly knew each other before, because essentially they live on a different street. They just live at the end of the bridleway.
I think that's amazing, Ange. I think we should give
Yeah.
you an award for a community rewilder.
Well, community fruit, because I pruned all the fruit trees as well. We've got an abundance of, there were 5 apple trees and 2 pear trees. So a few of us enjoyed it. We dished it out. My housemate Liz made it, and we all had apple crumble the other night, and elderberries are growing. So I'm like, shall I make us all elderberry syrup? So it has really been, it's old fashioned and it's lovely.
I think that's great. I really do. It's a fantastic, like a really lovely story as well, isn't it? That something
Yeah.
come out of just having that little space and, you know, leaving it to go wild, but then, you know, getting involved in helping it along, sort of thing, which is what you're doing, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I mean, clearing the brambles where the apple trees and the blackcurrant bushes were was necessary, because I couldn't prune, and we couldn't even harvest them before. Whereas now we can get a ladder and we can get up and we can take those off. Whereas before you'd risk being prickled all over. So just by that clearing, but I'm still leaving bits of it, you know, large bits of it wild. And even with the neighbour, he's raised the setting of his petrol mower, so he's not chopping down the speedwell, and we're leaving dandelions and things like that.
So, Ange, you know, when you've got the bridal way, do you actually have any bird boxes in place anywhere?
Yeah, we do. A couple of neighbours have got them. So we've had blue tip fledglings this year from one neighbour's bird box, and he had another one in the wood that I mentioned at the end of the bridal way. But because we've got so many trees, they're not that necessary. In my own garden, I haven't had a bird box this year, simply because I was struggling to put it up in the spot that I wanted. But we have had blue tip fledglings in my garden previously. But a year before that, there were wren fledglings, and I'd actually witnessed the daddy wren hop around my garden to find the perfect spot, get the materials. He selected the fir tree nearest to my kitchen window. It's less than a metre from my kitchen window. Hopped in, did the whole process of building it, then did his call out quite loudly for some mates. 2 prospective missuses came and had a look. One chose it, laid eggs. They hatched. Unfortunately, so we thought, the whole nest collapsed because it wasn't secure enough in the small conifer, and it fell to the ground. But when I went to inspect, although it was such a mess, I could hear the fledglings, the babies cheeping. So I made a wooden box, a cardboard box cover. The mummy wren heard them and hopped in, went in, fed them for 3 days, and I was lucky enough to be in the garden when they they hopped one by one and learned how to take the first flights in my garden. So that was completely magical. And I think, again, if you create these safe conditions or these spaces where birds feel safe to let you get close, or that they've got enough cover, they will actually make the home anywhere. And this year we did, unfortunately, I think a sparrowhawk got it because there was a mess of feathers everywhere. But my neighbour has a tree in the middle of her garden, and because our fences were down, we could witness all of that. We witnessed the blackbird fledgling. It was around my garden, did great, but then it hopped up to the bridal way, and it was just starting to fly when I think a sparrowhawk got it. But that's nature for you. It can be beautiful and cruel, can't it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? It's just that where everything is trying to nest and live, there's always a bit of a a danger somewhere, isn't there? But we can't do anything about that. But I like the idea that, you know, the story that you've actually helped, you know, the blue tits actually get through that, you know, that nesting period, which is lovely, isn't it? Really great.
Oh, it was just magical seeing the wrens and the blue tits, you know, it's fabulous seeing that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's really good. So thank you anyway, Anj, for telling us your story, and we're going to share all of the details that you've provided us. We're going to hopefully share some links on our page as well, and then
Brilliant,
everyone can
thank you.
follow you on the on social media. And it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I've had loads of fun.
Okay, speak to you soon. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Bye.